we live in a world where we're overloaded with content. What we're really starved for is connection. So I really do think that we don't need more content, but the story is what allows us to build connection. So I think a lot of people put the content out there first, almost like the cart before the horse. So why do you think it's not it takes skill? Like you've been doing this for nearly 2 decades and you've worked with the industry best. Why do you think this is not something that everyone just gets right away? It's like, oh, I know how to tell a story. I know how to invite people in. What is it about it that it's not so natural for us?
It is the abuse of storytelling, I think, that makes it so. There are people out there who try to make it complicated as to how to tell a story. So the moment, like, let's say I came on this podcast and I told you there's these 5 steps of storytelling, and I list them out and yada yada yada. It begins to make you feel like, oh, I can't do that, right? Whereas I just started with simple. The story is a very specific moment in time. We all have very specific moments in time that have happened. Um, and so I think people get intimidated by the fact that, oh, I got to tell this the right way. We are all naturally storytellers. You, Gloria, are a great storyteller. I am a great storyteller. Now, what matters is how you use that story towards your end goal. Your end goal, maybe you're putting out an email newsletter and you want to make sure people read it. Your goal may be to get engagement. You want to get likes and comments from a post that you make online. That's what becomes to get intimidated because, and on top of that, you have to be vulnerable. When I talk about the robbery that happened in Delaware while I was working, again, that's not an easy story to share. It's a traumatic moment. I've never been robbed before. I've never even lost so much as a microphone when filming for a client. So you have to be vulnerable, and that's the other piece I think that's intimidating for some people is when you're putting yourself out there, it's a level of vulnerability that is like, oh, people will really know me, or they'll really get to see me. In my experience, it was only when people begin to see me that they really wanted to do business with me, right? Because they finally understood, oh, this is what Jude's about. We want to build trust. And the one way to build that trust is to be vulnerable, is to invite someone to be open with you. Um, and so I think that's why it can be intimidating is one side of it is just, people are worried about telling it the right way when we already do that. Maybe sometimes we give too much details, we tell too long of a story, but we already are good storytellers. The other part is being vulnerable and being comfortable with being vulnerable. Because I'll admit, social media online is not the best place all the time. It can be an ugly place. But I also think when you're looking to attract the right people to your tribe, attract the right people to work with you, it is through your story that they're like, I don't just want to work with you, I need to work with you. When you heard my story, Gloria, and you could talk about this experience, I don't want to speak for you, but I remember the first thing you said to me was, I need to have you on the podcast. And it wasn't, did I lead a great workshop? I'm sure I did, but I also shared stories that helped you understand who I was. And in my opinion, but also I think it's true, like it was because of the stories that made you feel like you need to. When you create desire and demand, you do that through connection, through captivating an audience. But to me, I want people to feel like I'm the only option. And in order to do that is through your story. The one thing no one else can duplicate. They can duplicate the service that you do. They can duplicate the product, but the one thing they can't duplicate, Gloria, is your story.